EU drops legal case against Poland over anti-LGBTQ plus zones. The EU has closed the legal proceedings against Poland over the so-called, quote, LGBT-ideology freedom zones, after only a few local authorities have dropped their anti-LGBTQ plus resolutions. In July 2021, the European Commission launched legal action against Poland over the adoption by several municipalities in the country of resolutions declaring to be zones free from, quote, LGBT ideology. The legal proceedings against Poland also entailed the freezing of funding for all the municipalities that were found to be in breach of key EU membership principles, including the protection of LGBTQ plus rights. As reported by the Polish investigative journalism website oko.press, the EU quietly closed its legal proceedings against Poland on January 26. After questioning the European Commission directly, OKO received a response confirming that the case was indeed closed. When inquired about the reasoning behind this decision, the newspaper did not receive an official explanation. Justyna, a member of the Polish LGBTQ plus group, Campaign Against Homophobia, said that activists in the country were, quote, surprised, end quote, by the decision, given that only in 2020, the commission received over 400 complaints from Polish citizens regarding the discriminatory resolutions. Well, first off, I'm just going to say this. We've been talking about Poland and for a few weeks now, and I'm just going to say they need to get it together, okay? The EU, they need to get it together, and they need to pull the trigger. And I think, one way or another, so we know what we're dealing with. This flip-flopping, going back and forth, ping-pong table around our rights, and the rights of LGBTQ plus members in Europe, is just ridiculous. I mean, how can anyone feel safe, right? And that's the first place. Humans automatically move into survival mode when we don't have what we need to live, right? A part of living for us as LGBTQ plus members of the world, we also require safety. And that safety is in our physical, our mental, our spiritual safety, all of it. And we're just seeing right now a full-on attack, and it's starting to get scary. And I know some people have said it's scary, but I will remember all of the previous generations, those brothers and sisters, LGBTQ plus members of our community who have paved the way, and we are fighters, and we will fight to the end. So
remain vigilant.
Yeah, and I think to your point, we just talked about distractions. Ukraine is a distraction. Poland is one of the places that all of the stuff is passing through. President Biden passed through Poland on a 10-hour train trip to get to Ukraine. Does the EU look at, we can't deal with this now because we have to worry about Ukraine, so we're going to put LGBT rights on the side because we don't want to have an argument about that. If you want to pass through our country, you better drop this case. I don't know how far it goes, but you have to wonder, has there been a conversation like that? Okay, we're just going to put this on the back burner because we have bigger fish to fry. And again, at the risk and at the demise of human rights, of individual rights, of our community being able to speak up and have the protections it deserves. I don't know how far I'm stretching it, but, just look at the world view.
Well, I think one of the key words in this story was funding. And the humanitarian crisis that has been happening along the Polish-Ukraine border, well, it extends much further into the country. And a lot of these so-called, ideology-free zones are taking in refugees. They are taking in LGBTQ plus refugees. I know I've sat on this panel before when we've been praising Poland in the last few months for taking that on. So yes, I think politics is at play, but I don't think it was as hardball as if you want to come through, then you have to. I think a lot of this is.
That, so I want to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting they're actually pulling that, but it's just this global.
Right, but I just feel that the idea was, look, Poland, even their more red state-ish areas, need the funding to deal with the humanitarian crisis. And the fact is, Poland, especially in the big cities, Krakow and Warsaw, are very, by Polish standards, LGBTQ friendly. And unfortunately, I think we are sort of taking a back burner for perhaps a greater good, or at least a more immediate greater good.
Right.
I think this idea of the back burner is so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just because these issues are inextricably linked, right?
Yeah.
Like LGBTQ is not separate from economics. It's not separate from race. It's not separate from housing crisis. It's not separate from any of those things. So it's like when you put that to the back burner in quotes, like you're putting all those issues with it for an entire population of people. So I hear it and I understand it. And I think that there's so many people that consider that a social issue, and also it's an issue of all of these other different things. So like, how do we make sure in our fight for eggs, in our fight for housing, in our fight for all of that, we're also saying, we're fighting for this because we know that for LGBTQ people, it's even worse, right? We know that for this group of people, it's even worse. So we're still gonna do this fight, and we're gonna make sure that we're uplifting all of the intersections that we have at the same time.
And based on what you're saying, there is the truth that the government doesn't focus on one thing. There are hundreds of thousands of people that are involved in government that work on certain causes, and if the LGBTQ is one of those causes, those folks didn't suddenly switch to work in necessarily the army or stuff like that. These people are still doing their jobs, and so they can still be raising the awareness and the attention and creating fair rights for all.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.